For today's In Focus, we travel to Cumbria and the stone circle at Castlerigg near Keswick. This is a late Neolithic, early Bronze Age monument constructed around 3200 BC. It is one of the oldest stone circles in Britain. The stone blocks comprising the circle are a local metamorphic slate. In a plan of the monument, it is possible to see that it's not a perfect circle. At its largest, it has a diameter of 32.6 meters. At its smallest, its diameter is around 25.9 meters. The stones vary in size. However, the heaviest stone on the site is estimated to weigh around 16 tons. The tallest stone is around 2.3 meters high. On the northern edge of the circle, there is a 3.3 meter gap between stones. This may have served as an entrance. And within the circle, there are a series of lumps and bumps, cairns or amorphous mounds. These are negligible features today. To the east of the interior of the circle are 10 stones in an approximately rectangular arrangement. There is a tradition that the stones of the circle itself can never really be counted. Visitors often report either counting 38 or 42 stones. However, the official number, according to the National Trust, is that there are 40 stones in total at Castlerigg. Despite the site's preeminence, it wasn't really until the early 18th century that it came to the attention of academics. William Stukeley, for example, famous for his observations of prehistoric landscapes across Britain, visited Castlerigg in 1725. This is what he observed. Before we came to Keswick, on an eminence in the middle of a great concavity of those rude hills, and not far from the banks of the River Greater, I observed another Celtic work, very entire. It is 100 feet in diameter, and consists of 40 stones, some very large. At the east end of it is a grave made of such other stones, in number about 10. This is placed in the very east point of the circle, and within it there is not a stone wanting, though there are some removed a little out of their first station. Archaeologists currently believe that actually the stones are pretty much where they've always been, but nonetheless that was the first official observation of the monument. Over the centuries, the breathtaking location of Castlerigg provided inspiration for various artists and poets, notably in the 19th century, Romantic poet John Keats. Supposedly inspired by the monument, he wrote scarce images of life, one here, one there, lay vast and edgeways, like a dismal cirque of druid stones upon a forlorn moor. Others wrote more favourably of Castlerigg. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, on a visit in 1799 in the company of William Wordsworth, said, "A mile and a half from Keswick stands a druidical circle, where the mountains stand one behind the other, in orderly array, as if evoked by, and attentive to, the assembly of white-vested wizards." It seems that the setting of Castlerigg has always had just as much of an impact upon visitors as the stones themselves. Strangely, there has only been one known archaeological excavation at Castlerigg. This was carried out by W.K. Dover in 1882. As with so many others, his attention was drawn to the rectilinear enclosure to the east of the circle. Within this feature he found what he thought were small pieces of burned wood or charcoal and some dark, unctuous sort of earth. He took samples of both and took them away from the site. What happened to these samples no one knows, and they're probably lost forever, but his description does reveal the tantalizing possibility of different phases for Castlerigg's monument. That is to say that perhaps the circle and the rectilinear feature were constructed at different times, with different soils surrounding them. In 1985, English Heritage commissioned magnetometry and resistivity surveys on the site. The geophysics was to improve understanding of the site and therefore interpretation for visitors. Sadly, the results are yet to be fully published. In 2004, the Archaeology department at Durham University undertook a survey of the stones to find rock art which had been claimed to be on the site. They used laser scanning techniques and only found relatively recent graffiti. No prehistoric etchings were revealed. Interestingly, Castlerigg Stone Circle was one of the first monuments in Britain to be scheduled. In the 1882 Act, which scheduled 68 sites of historic interest in Great Britain and Ireland. This was in part a reaction to tourism. People were actually chipping flakes off the stones to take away with them. And in 1913, Canon Hardwicke Rawnsley, one of the founders of the National Trust, purchased the site and donated it to the National Trust, in whose care it has been ever since. The question remains, however, I'm sure you're asking yourself, why was Castlerigg built? Well, one possibility lies in its proximity to the Langdale axe factory. In the Neolithic, this area produced thousands of high-quality axes which were highly prized and sought after. These made their way across Britain in trade exchanges. It is possible that the trade of these highly prized items came with a certain amount of responsibility and ritual. Castlerigg Stone Circle provides a fitting and impressive location for such transactions. Indeed, in addition to observing the monument, William Stukeley did mention that stone tools had been found on the site, and in 1875 an unpolished axe was found in the immediate vicinity of the monument. Another possibility, as with many stone circles, is seemingly archaeoastronomy. Various researchers over the years have attempted to locate alignments with astronomical phenomena. Probably the most convincing of these alignments is with the autumn equinox to the east. However, it has been noted by archaeologists on the ground that the internal rectangular feature of the circle far from complements this apparent focus. It just doesn't line up. Finally, there is the possibility encapsulated in Burl's quote from 1988. Castlerigg seems to crystallize the characteristic features of the landscape in which it was built. In other words, the monument reflects and augments the landscape in which it's built. The so-called entrance here, for example, reflects and focuses upon the valley beyond. And this reflection and appreciation for the landscape surrounding the monument appears to be at least part of the motivation behind the placement of the stones at Castlerigg. Ultimately, in this instance, we may never know the full intention behind the circle, but the stones are undeniably mesmerizing. Even on one of the grimmest possible days to visit the site, when we went there, we were very impressed by the monument and its location. I think I safely speak for everyone at ArchaeoSoup when I say that Castlerigg is a special place, and certainly makes an impression.